There are certain parts of the human body that when delivered trauma to can have devastating results. Oftentimes fighters will target these areas as a way to shorten the fight. Why would you want it to be harder than it is? These vulnerable parts of the body include the tip of the chin, the temples, and perhaps most famously, the liver. Every fighter is targeting these areas, and every fighter knows they should be defending these areas. It's not a surprise or a shock that fighters are often trying to keep their hands up to protect their chin or block their body to protect their liver. This is not a mistake. Because these so-called weak points are common knowledge, every fighter is trying to attack those areas, and every fighter is trying to defend those areas. So fighters have to get tricky and sneaky in order to hide their real intentions and attack the areas that they know will deliver devastating results. This is the beauty of fighting. Boxing, wrestling, whatever it may be. In boxing, you know I'm trying to hit your chin. You know I'm trying to hit your liver. How can I trick you into leaving one of these spots open so that I can have an opportunity? This is the question that fighters are constantly asking themselves throughout the fight. Throwing the jab to get the hands up and then dropping down to go to the liver, touching the forehead and then shooting low for a double leg, and in MMA, throwing punches to set up the body kicks. Jan Blachowicz's switch kick is a perfect example of this concept. The switch kick is a powerful technique often used by orthodox fighters to find the left kick to the liver. Southpaw fighters are afforded this rear body kick to the liver at free will. However, it's important to note that due to the open stance matchup, both fighters are throwing power shots at each other with little to no defense. So the benefit of the switch kick from orthodox is to keep that close stance matchup until you decide to open it up strictly for that kick. Some of the best switch kickers in MMA history come from a Muay Thai or kickboxing background, particularly Rafael Fiziev, Edson Barboza, and who we are going to be talking about today, Jan Blachowicz. Jan uses his switch kick in a different way than the other two because he will largely throw it at the end of a combination. The combination being his 1-2 switch into the left body kick. This is a unique combination because he's moving forward into the switch, whereas other fighters will plant to switch kick or even switch kick off the back foot. It's a very similar shifting combination to the one Dustin Poirier famously used throughout his career, starting in one stance and switching to land the power side on the other stance. This tricky combination forces your opponent to back up and hopefully circle into your power strike. Jan's shifting combination is further bolstered by the fact that he has a very powerful right hand. By showing the 1-2 and forcing fighters to circle away from that right hand, they inadvertently step right into the switch kick. This is especially effective because the southpaw left roundhouse to the body lands right on the liver, the notoriously vulnerable spot we mentioned before. An added benefit of Blachowicz's switch kick is that it disrupts the opponent's timing. In Blachowicz's UFC debut against Ilir Latifi, we can see this in effect. Jan and Ilir had been circling and throwing out feelers for about a minute and a half until Ilir threw some big hooks with Jan's back to the cage. Both guys reset and hand fight for a bit before Jan blitzes in with 3 or 4 punches. The blitz isn't meant to land, but rather force Latifi to circle away and back up. At the end of the last punch, Jan steps through his stance to cover ground and end up in southpaw and slams that left body kick right to the liver of Latifi. Latifi is clearly hurt and covers up, and Jan finishes him with hooks on the ground. The switch kick can also be used while planted or even on the back foot as a way to switch stances while retreating. GSP has a great switch head kick KO while he was planted as Matt Hughes was coming in. Compare this to the switch kick that we just looked at with Jan, where he covers ground to land the switch kick instead of planting his feet and throwing it up. There's a million ways to skin a cat and a few ways to land a switch kick. Here we will look at Magic Marlon Moraes' switch kick. Magic Marlon Moraes was an incredibly fun fighter to watch back in the day. He had explosive striking, a threatening jiu-jitsu game, and great coaches in Mark Henry and Ricardo Almeida, the team that led Frankie Edgar and Eddie Alvarez to several championships. He was the World Series of Fighting champ at the same time as Justin Gaethje, and the two often got lumped together as those crazy fighters at World Series of Fighting. When Moraes came to the UFC, he brought this exciting style to the cage. Unfortunately for him, in his debut, he'd draw Rafael Assunção, who was a master at slowing down the fight and staying safe defensively. He would lose this close fight, then fight another close fight with John Dodson, but be on the right side of the judges' scorecards. Then he went on one of the greatest finish streaks the UFC bantamweight division has ever seen. In this stretch, he knocked out future champion Aljamain Sterling, who at the time was a highly touted prospect on a solid win streak, but would then go on to win his next 9 fights, get the title, and defend it a record 3 times. Marlon would next fight Jimmy Rivera, who was on a 20-fight win streak, with 5 of those in the UFC. Marlon knocked out both of these surging contenders in a combined 1 minute and 40 seconds, and he KO'd both of them with his famous switch kick. Against Aljamain, he threw the switch kick as Aljo stepped in on a takedown attempt. The knee landed first and slept Aljo mid-takedown. Marlon planted for the switch, and with his classic Muay Thai technique of picking up the knee first, then turning the kick over, he caught Aljo flush with the knee. Against Jimmy Rivera, Marlon landed a switch head kick, which dropped Rivera and led to the subsequent ground-and-pound finish. Marlon set up the switch kick with beautiful switch leg kicks first, the classic misdirection of lowering your opponent's eyes and focus to hide a devastating head strike. This would also come planted on the back foot against an aggressive boxing approach from Jimmy, going right over his pumping jab. Marlon's switch kick put him right at the top of the division, and after getting a finish over the only man to give him a loss in the UFC, the aforementioned Rafael Assunção, it led him to a title shot. Perhaps the most famous switch kicker in MMA history, though, is Edson Barboza. Long considered a pioneer of Muay Thai and modern MMA, Edson popularized many techniques in his UFC tenure. Most notably the wheel kick he landed against Terry Edom, which made the rounds of fighters' arsenals as many breakout techniques tend to do after a viral knockout. See also Anderson Silva's front kick to the face, or later the calf kick pioneered by Benson Henderson and Brent Primus. However, Edson's switch kicks, both to the body and to the legs, buttered his bread long before and even after the wheel kick KO over Edom. Curiously enough, Barboza and Moraes had the same Muay Thai coach in Brazil as kids. One has to wonder if this shared coach was the one to teach both gentlemen the fantastic switch kick mechanics that lended them both so much success. Perhaps the best examples of Edson's switch kick is against Paul Felder and Dan Hooker, two notoriously tough fighters. Against Paul Felder, Edson was able to mix the switch kick in with his spinning attacks, keeping Paul on his toes throughout the fight. By mixing targets between the leg kicks, switch body kick, and spinning kick to the gut, Barboza had Felder guessing as to which part of his body he should cover up. This varied attack further highlights the utility of the switch kick, as it opens up many other options. Edson often threw it planted against Paul, catching the pressuring fighter as he moved in to box. Against Hooker, it was as much a devastating blow as any strike could be. Dan Hooker was doubling over any time Barboza landed this vicious kick, and at multiple points it looked like he was going to be stopped. Barboza would batter Dan's legs, rip the switch kick to the liver, and wheel kick Dan when he doubled over. He also threw the spinning back kick to the body, and clearly had some disdain for Dan Hooker's intestines and internal organs in this contest. Edson threw the switch kick on the front foot more than any other way in this fight, hunting down the hurt Hooker and hurling kicks at his liver. It was a dominant performance, and one that quickly turned from exciting scrap into hard-to-watch beatdown. While it is a tool often reserved for fast-twitch fiber fighters like Moraes and Barboza, Jan Blachowicz's use of the switch kick shows that it can be as tricky as it can be explosive. Whether setting it up with blitzing strikes, or using it as a counter-strike, or simply blasting it on an already compromised opponent, the switch kick remains one of the most versatile and brutal kicks in MMA, especially when in the hands of a striker who has multiple tricks up their sleeves.